Your anger didn't disappear. That grief you buried at 15? Still there. The fear you've been running from? It's hiding in a place you can't see, but it's affecting every decision you make right now. According to Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, suppressed emotions don't vanish into thin air. They go somewhere dark, deep, and disturbingly active. They sink into your unconscious mind, and from there, they orchestrate your life in ways you'd never suspect. What you're about to discover will change how you see yourself forever. Because right now, at this very moment, your suppressed emotions are speaking. The question is, are you listening? Freud revolutionized psychology with one radical idea: most of your mind is invisible to you. Imagine an iceberg floating in the ocean. The tip above water represents your conscious mind, the thoughts and feelings you're aware of right now. But beneath the surface lies something massive and hidden. This is your unconscious mind, and according to Freud, it's where all your suppressed emotions live. The conscious mind is tiny compared to the unconscious. It's just the surface. Below, in the dark waters, exists a realm packed with forgotten memories, buried desires, and, yes, all those emotions you've pushed away. You felt this without knowing it. That inexplicable anxiety before a meeting, that sudden anger at a small mistake. These aren't random. They're messages from below. Freud discovered this through his patients. People came to him with mysterious symptoms: paralysis without physical cause, unexplained fears, obsessive behaviors. Through careful analysis, he found something shocking. These symptoms had roots in suppressed emotional experiences, often from childhood. The emotions hadn't disappeared, they'd gone underground. Think of your unconscious as a vast storage facility. Every emotion you've ever refused to feel, every painful memory you've tried to forget, every desire you've deemed unacceptable gets filed away down there. But here's what makes this terrifying and fascinating. This isn't passive storage. Your unconscious is alive, it's active, it's constantly processing these suppressed emotions, and it's constantly trying to communicate with your conscious mind. Everyone has this hidden place. You might think you're in control of your thoughts and feelings, but Freud would argue otherwise. Your unconscious mind is running programs in the background, influencing your choices, your relationships, your fears, and your dreams. The emotions you suppress don't lose their power, they gain it, because now they operate in darkness, where you can't see them or control them. But what happens to emotions we refuse to feel? How exactly do they get pushed into this hidden realm? That's where Freud's concept of repression becomes crucial. Repression is your mind's bouncer. It stands at the door between your conscious and unconscious, deciding what gets in and what gets thrown out. According to Freud, repression is the psychological mechanism that pushes threatening or painful emotions out of conscious awareness. It's automatic, it's protective, and it's happening to you right now without you realizing it. Think about a memory you can't quite reach. Maybe something embarrassing from childhood. Maybe a moment of intense fear or shame. You know it happened, but the details are fuzzy, distant, almost like they belong to someone else. That's repression at work. Your mind decided that memory was too painful to keep in conscious awareness, so it filed it away in the unconscious. Freud believed repression serves a vital function. It protects your ego from psychological harm. Imagine if you had to consciously experience every painful emotion, every traumatic memory, every forbidden desire all at once. You'd be overwhelmed. You couldn't function. So your mind does this automatically. It takes what's unbearable and hides it. But here's the critical part. Repression requires energy. Your mind has to constantly work to keep these emotions buried. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. The ball wants to surface. You have to keep pushing it down. This takes effort, mental resources, psychological energy. Your mind does this all day, every day, with emotions you're not even aware of. Why do we suppress emotions? Sometimes it's trauma. A child who experiences abuse might repress the memory to survive. Sometimes it's social conditioning. Boys are taught not to cry, so they repress sadness. Sometimes it's guilt. You feel attracted to someone inappropriate, so you repress the desire. Your mind does this automatically to protect you. The psychological protection system is sophisticated. It doesn't just hide memories, it hides feelings, impulses, and thoughts that threaten your sense of self. If you see yourself as a good person, your mind might repress angry or violent thoughts. If you pride yourself on being strong, your mind might repress vulnerability and fear. But repressed emotions don't just vanish. They're still there, still active, still demanding expression. The energy doesn't disappear. It transforms, and that transformation leads to consequences you'd never expect. So where exactly do these suppressed emotions go? Freud described the unconscious as a vast reservoir, a deep psychological container where everything you've ever repressed accumulates. Imagine a locked room in your mind. Inside this room are all the emotions, memories, and desires you couldn't handle. They're not destroyed, they're stored, and they're waiting. This reservoir isn't empty space, it's densely packed with emotional energy. Every hurt you never processed, every anger you swallowed, every fear you denied entry into consciousness, they all pile up down there. The unconscious becomes this pressure chamber of unresolved feelings. These emotions are still alive. They still carry their original intensity. Freud used the term psychic energy to describe this phenomenon. Emotions are energy. When you suppress them, that energy doesn't evaporate. It gets redirected, transformed, stored. Think of it like closing a valve on a pressurized system. The pressure doesn't go away. It builds up somewhere else. Your unconscious becomes that somewhere else. Nothing truly disappears in the psyche. This was one of Freud's most radical insights. You might think you've moved past that childhood rejection, that teenage heartbreak, that moment of humiliation. But if you never fully process those emotions, if you push them away instead of feeling them, they're still down there, intact, waiting for an opportunity to surface. The unconscious doesn't organize emotions logically like your conscious mind does. Down there, time doesn't work the same way. A 40-year-old emotion can feel as fresh as yesterday's anger. An emotion from age 5 can have the same intensity as an emotion from last week. Everything coexists simultaneously in this timeless realm. Your unconscious is like an archaeological site, layer upon layer of suppressed experiences. The deeper you go, the older the material. But it's all preserved. A smell, a sound, a certain type of person can trigger something from those deep layers, and suddenly you're feeling an emotion that seems to come from nowhere. It's not from nowhere, it's from the underground storage. And here's what makes this truly unsettling. These stored emotions are constantly trying to escape. They want expression. They need release. Your conscious mind built walls to keep them in, but those walls have cracks. And through those cracks, the repressed material seeps back into your awareness in disguised forms. The unconscious refuses to stay silent. Despite all your mind's efforts to keep suppressed emotions buried, they find ways to break through. Freud called this the return of the repressed. One of the most famous examples? Freudian slips. You've done this before. You meant to say one thing, but something completely different came out of your mouth. That mistake wasn't random. Freud termed these slips parapraxies, errors in speech, memory, or action that reveal unconscious thoughts and feelings. You're at a business meeting. You mean to say, "I'm glad to be here," but instead you say, "I'm sad to be here." Your unconscious just told the truth your conscious mind was hiding. The suppressed emotion found a crack and slipped through. These slips happen constantly. You forget someone's name, not because your memory is bad, but because you unconsciously want to forget them. You lose an object, not by accident, but because some part of you doesn't want to use it. You call your current partner by your ex's name. Your conscious mind is horrified. Your unconscious just revealed what you've been suppressing, unresolved feelings. What your mistakes reveal is profound. They're not meaningless errors. They're meaningful communications from your unconscious. Every slip, every forgotten word, Every misplaced item is a message. Your repressed emotions are speaking through these cracks in your conscious control. The tighter you try to control your feelings, the more creative your unconscious becomes in expressing them. Freud documented hundreds of these cases. A patient who accidentally broke a precious vase that reminded her of her mother. A man who repeatedly forgot appointments with someone he consciously believed he liked. A woman who kept calling her husband by her father's name. Each slip revealed suppressed emotions, resentment, dislike, unresolved childhood attachments. You might laugh these off as simple mistakes, but Freud would challenge you. There are no accidents. Your unconscious is too sophisticated for that. When you slip, you're revealing. When you forget, you're expressing. When you make a mistake, you're communicating something you've been refusing to acknowledge. But slips are just the beginning. They're minor eruptions from the underground reservoir. Your unconscious has much more dramatic ways of expressing suppressed emotions. Every single night, it creates an entire world where those buried feelings can finally speak. Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Every night, when your conscious defenses lower during sleep, your suppressed emotions stage a performance. Your strangest dream makes sense now. It's not random imagery. It's your unconscious speaking in symbols, trying to express what you've been repressing all day, all year, maybe all your life. Dreams have two levels according to Freud: manifest content and latent content. The manifest content is what you remember, the literal events of the dream. You're running through a forest, you're falling, you're at school in your underwear. But beneath this surface story lies the latent content, the real meaning, the suppressed emotions your unconscious is trying to communicate. Your unconscious can't speak directly in dreams because even during sleep, some censorship remains. If it showed you the raw repressed material, you'd wake up immediately. So it disguises the message. It uses symbols. It creates metaphors. It transforms your suppressed rage into a tidal wave, your suppressed desire into climbing a mountain, your suppressed fear into being chased by shadows. Dream symbolism is the language of the unconscious. Water often represents emotions. Houses represent the self. Being naked represents vulnerability or shame. But symbols are personal too. What a snake means to you depends on your unique experiences and suppressions. Every nightmare has a message. That recurring dream where you're unprepared for an exam? It's not about exams. It's about a deeper, suppressed fear of inadequacy. Freud spent years analyzing dreams, both his own and his patients'. He found patterns. Dreams of death often represent suppressed anger toward that person. Dreams of being paralyzed often represent suppressed feelings of helplessness. Dreams of flying often represent suppressed desires for freedom or power. The unconscious is remarkably consistent in its symbolic language. Why do we forget most dreams? Because remembering them would mean confronting the suppressed material they contain. Your mind lets you peek into the unconscious during sleep, but upon waking, it quickly pulls the curtain closed again. Those dreams you almost remember, they're probably the ones carrying the most important suppressed emotions. But the unconscious doesn't just speak through words and dreams. When psychological expression is completely blocked, your suppressed emotions find another route. Your body also tells the story, and sometimes it screams what your mind refuses to say. Your body remembers what you forgot. When emotions can't be expressed psychologically, they express themselves physically. Freud discovered this through his early patients, many of whom had physical symptoms with no medical explanation. Paralysis, blindness, chronic pain, all without physical cause. These were psychosomatic symptoms, the body speaking the suppressed emotions the mind refused to acknowledge. That unexplained headache might be suppressed anger. That constant stomach pain could be suppressed anxiety. That chronic back pain might be the weight of suppressed grief. The mind-body connection isn't metaphorical, it's literal. Your suppressed emotions create real physical symptoms. Your body becomes the stage where your unconscious performs what your conscious mind censored. Freud treated a patient named Anna O., who developed paralysis in her arm. No physical injury explained it. Through psychoanalysis, Freud discovered she'd suppressed intense anger toward her father during his illness. She'd wanted to strike him, but couldn't allow herself to feel that desire. So her unconscious paralyzed the arm that wanted to hit. The suppressed emotion became a physical symptom. Physical manifestations of repressed emotions are everywhere. Tension headaches from suppressed frustration, digestive issues from suppressed fear, fatigue from suppressed sadness. Your body is honest even when your mind lies. It can't pretend. It can't rationalize. It simply expresses the emotional truth you're avoiding. This explains so much about unexplained illness. Modern medicine often finds no physical cause for chronic pain, fatigue, or mysterious symptoms. Freud would suggest looking deeper into the unconscious. What emotions are you suppressing? What feelings are demanding expression? Your body might be the only outlet they have left. The conversion of psychological conflict into physical symptoms is called conversion disorder in modern psychiatry, but Freud understood it over a century ago. When you can't cry, you might develop eye problems. When you can't speak your truth, you might develop throat issues. When you can't stand a situation, you might develop leg problems. The unconscious is brutally literal sometimes. Your body doesn't just express individual suppressed emotions, it carries the cumulative weight of everything you've buried. That's why some people seem physically weighed down, hunched, compressed. They're literally carrying their suppressions. But there's an even darker consequence when suppression becomes a lifestyle. When repression becomes chronic, when you spend years pushing emotions underground, Freud argued that neurosis develops. Neurosis isn't just anxiety or worry, it's a fundamental distortion in how you relate to reality, caused by the massive energy required to keep suppressed emotions buried. You're not broken, you're protecting, but that protection comes at a devastating cost. Anxiety is the primary symptom of neurosis, and according to Freud, anxiety is transformed fear. You couldn't face the original fear, so you repressed it. But the fear didn't disappear. It converted into free-floating anxiety, that nameless dread that follows you everywhere. You don't know why you're anxious because the original cause is buried in your unconscious. The emotion found a new form. How repression leads to neurosis is elegant and tragic. Every suppressed emotion requires psychological energy to stay suppressed. The more you repress, the more energy gets locked up in maintaining those repressions. You have less energy for living, for joy, for authentic connection. You become rigid, defensive, anxious. Your personality warps around the need to keep the unconscious material buried. Freud identified several neurotic patterns: obsessive-compulsive behaviors, irrational phobias, unexplained depression, all rooted in suppressed emotions demanding expression. A man obsessively washes his hands not because he's dirty, but because he's suppressing feelings of guilt. A woman develops a phobia of dogs not because dogs are dangerous, but because a dog represents something she's suppressed from childhood. Psychological symptoms are creative compromises. Your unconscious finds ways to express suppressed emotions without revealing them directly. You become irritable and don't know why. You sabotage relationships and can't understand your behavior. You repeat destructive patterns and feel powerless to stop. These aren't character flaws, they're symptoms. Your suppressed emotions are leaking through in disguised forms. The neurotic person lives in constant internal conflict. Part of them wants to express the suppressed emotion. Another part is terrified of what that expression might mean. So they stay stuck, trapped between the push of the unconscious and the resistance of the conscious mind. This explains so much about behavior. That person who always plays the victim, they might be suppressing their own power. That person who can't stop working, they might be suppressing emptiness or fear of intimacy. And neurosis shapes your entire personality through the defense mechanisms you develop to manage your suppressions. So, what does this mean for you? Right now, as you absorb this information, suppressed emotions are living in your unconscious. They're influencing your choices, your relationships, your physical health, your dreams. Modern neuroscience has validated much of Freud's theory. The brain does suppress traumatic memories. Emotions do affect physical health. The unconscious does exist, though we now call it implicit memory and automatic processing. Understanding this changes everything. That inexplicable sadness isn't weakness, it's a suppressed emotion trying to surface. That recurring conflict in your relationships isn't bad luck, it's a pattern rooted in suppressed childhood experiences. That physical symptom with no medical cause isn't imaginary. It's your body expressing what your mind won't acknowledge. Your emotions deserve to be felt, not buried. Self-awareness practices become crucial. Journaling without censoring, noticing your dreams, paying attention to your slips and mistakes. These aren't just therapeutic exercises. They're conversations with your unconscious. When you write freely, when you track patterns in your behavior, when you sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of pushing them away, you're opening channels between conscious and unconscious. The importance of emotional processing cannot be overstated. Feel your feelings. Don't judge them, don't rationalize them away, don't suppress them because they're uncomfortable or socially unacceptable. Emotions are information, they're energy that needs expression. When you suppress them, you don't make them disappear. You just make them go underground, where they'll cause problems you can't see or control. This doesn't mean acting on every impulse. Freud wasn't advocating emotional chaos. It means acknowledging what you feel. You can feel anger without acting violently. You can feel desire without acting inappropriately. You can feel grief without falling apart. The key is conscious acknowledgement. What you're aware of, you can manage. What you suppress manages you. Your unconscious isn't your enemy. It's not some dark, chaotic force trying to destroy you. It's a part of you that holds everything you couldn't consciously handle at the time. It protected you by taking on that burden. Now, with awareness and courage, you can reclaim those suppressed parts. You can integrate them. You can become whole. Freud's theory offers a profound truth. Nothing is ever truly lost in the psyche. Every emotion you've suppressed is still there, waiting. Not to haunt you, but to be finally acknowledged, felt, and released. Your healing begins the moment you stop running from your unconscious and start listening to what it's been trying to tell you all along.